All right, everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm sitting here with my good buddy, Death Row. You might know him as Martin. You might know him by a few other names if you've ever been in the ring against him, but we can't say those here. And we're also joined today with the third man, Mr. Tony Spade. Yes, if you remember him, Tony Spade, or he was wrestled as Macoby Spade. And we're going to get into some stories, a little bit of information from Tony, what he's been doing, and we're going to let it go from there. Martin, what you got?
Man, I'm happy to be back. This is a great night. I love it. I got my brother Tony on here. A lot of people don't know Macoby Warrior is what I knew him as for a long time. But man, he's one of the toughest guys I ever stepped in the ring with. Me and this guy battled like nobody's business, man. It was great. And it was this brings back a lot of memories to me to see my good friend on here and know what we used to do to each other. And a lot of people don't know, but I broke my neck back in 1999, and I was wrestling this guy when it happened. I know he remembers.
And, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Is that what caused the punt her around the world?
No, that was no, definitely not. That was later. This one actually a member of the audience caused it. Somebody threw a folding chair at me while we were working on the floor, and I know Tony remembers that. And and I was going down, and I hit it with the back of my head, and I broke my neck. And then I was too stupid to even stop or even think about having a broken neck, and we just kept right on rolling. And but two of my best brothers on here at the same time. I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do. And so I'm just going to lead this in to everybody. As always, we're going to talk about the real side of wrestling. We're going to talk about the adventures that we had while we're out on the road and other adventures that we had when we're in a wrestling ring. And just let everybody enjoy it.
All right, Tony.
That sounds awesome, and I appreciate you guys inviting me to do this. This is pretty awesome. We've been up and down the roads quite a bit, so I know we have a lot of stories.
Well, we got a lot of running buddies. We got Chris Ace, we got Ogre, we got a few of us that ran the roads for quite a while together. And but that core group stayed together for many years. And now that we're all in separate places, let's get back together, and that's what we're here to do, is tell the stories. But
awesome.
And as we talked before we got on here, you trained in Central Florida. You started down in Central Florida. Now, I can't remember. You've told me before how much time you spent down there. But then you came up to Alabama and you found the garage.
I did.
All right. What's the differences to you when you came into the garage versus everywhere else? Because the garage is a enigma in it to itself.
It is. It was very, very different from the Florida wrestling that I started on. I started with Cousin Junior, okay. And we were in Central Florida and started with Cousin Junior, and everything over there for me was good. You know, I went from Cousin Junior, I went straight to the power plant for a little bit, ran up and down the East Coast, and I moved to Alabama when things started getting a little crazy for me down there. But the difference between Florida wrestling and Johnny's to me was just how serious everything was taken. And in Florida, it was more like, oh, I got to look good, I got to do this, I got to do that. And putting on the show was kind of put on the back burner. And going to Johnny's is kind of like working out in a Gold's Gym or in a dungeon. You know, in the dungeon, you're more serious. Everything is more detailed. Everybody is hungrier. Everybody wants more. Everybody wants to do better. So to me, that was a big difference. You know, my wrestling skills was pretty good. I think I refined everything else with Johnny and you guys. You know, the showmanship, if you will. So I think that was like the biggest difference that I took between Florida wrestling and the garage. You know, you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
absolutely. So he's talking about you were at WCW, you went over to the power plant. And so I'm going to interject on this because a lot of people don't know it, but the power plant was actually the back half of a strip club called the Peach Pit.
It was. Not too many people know that. Yep, that's
Not too
true.
many people know that, but man, for I've been there, and I know Bogey, I know you've been there, and so it was crazy to because everybody has this mental picture of this being WCW, and this is going to be this great, awesome facility, and you pull up to a strip club, and it's in the back half of the building.
Yeah,
Pretty
And
much.
it's not developmental for WWE. No.
no, it's not. And so I know you just said talking about going to the power plant. And it just reminded me of that because I was shocked when I went. And but I will say this: that did not take away from what you were learning when you were
Oh
in the
no.
power plant. They had 6 wrestling rings set up back there, and you basically ran the gauntlet back there. You had to do the thing,
Yeah,
and it was fun.
the last thing you was thinking about was what's happening outside.
No,
So like for the people that don't know the power plant, you walked in, you went changed, you said hello, being courteous as always in the locker room, and they didn't take no bullshit. It was like immediately you get in, push up, squat, sit up, run, and go run. And they wore you the hell out before you even started training. They wanted you really, really warm. And then of course you start hitting the ropes and it goes from there. So yeah, that was the last thing that you were worried about was like where's my car parked or who's outside or what kind of music
oh
is
yeah,
playing over there.
oh yeah, because you started in the first ring, you made it to the last ring, and Sarge was waiting on you. Yeah, when you got
Yeah,
in there with Sarge, all bets are off. You better know your shit.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
When
and
when I,
I
when I
loved
went
it.
when I went through, it was Paul Orndorff, and he just like if you would stop to take a breath, he was like, "Wow, you out of breath? Go get the fuck out of here, just leave." It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty tough.
My only question is, was he wearing the flip flops?
No, no,
No,
I, I think, I think
absolutely
he,
not.
Well,
I think he.
if y'all know the story I'm talking about, it's the one he beat up Vader wearing flip flops.
Oh
That
yeah,
that
yeah,
happened in the locker room, dude.
I
Yeah,
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I'm
no,
just wondering if he had the flip flops on there because he was ready to go.
at the
yeah,
power plant, you did not touch a wrestling ring unless you had your boots on.
Right.
And that was just point blank and period.
yeah, yeah.
You didn't touch a ring unless you had boots on.
And you also
And
didn't touch the ring unless you went through the workout.
yeah, that's right. That is
Yes,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the only
It was
workout, the
those
only
500 push-ups, 500 squats, 500 sit-ups,
Yeah.
the mile run. I mean, yeah,
I hate to say
good
this, but
times, good times.
the only workout I found that was worse than the power plant
I know which one
was
you're talking about.
Antonio warm up for Lucha Libre. The damn 4 hour warm up before you start training. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's fake. It's all fake, right?
yeah, it's all fake.
Well, speaking of fake, before we get into these stories here, you trained in the WCW rings, you trained in Florida rings. Let me hear about Johnny's Garage ring.
Oh, so I have no idea how I encountered Johnny's ring, Johnny's Garage. There was a show that in in Montgomery, and I had just moved into Montgomery, maybe a month and a half, and I saw a wrestling show, and I just decided, oh, let's go introduce ourselves. So I walked in, Johnny was sitting in the front, and he just kind of looked at me like, straight up and down, and he looked at me, he said, like, you're a wrestler, right? And I said, like, how did you know? He goes, like, you just have this look about you. How you doing? So we talked a little bit. I said, like, yeah, I'm a wrestler. I wrestled in Florida, been to WCW, this and that. And uh he told me to go in for free, and I said no. I pay my way in, and I sat in the back, and I watched an amazing show, an amazing story, from everybody, top to bottom. And on the way back, I asked Johnny, I'm like, hey, do you guys train locally around here? I would like to get some local training. And he I think that's how I got into it. So I showed up to train like a week and a half later, a week later, something like that. And the first person that I met was John Boy. And I looked at him and I said, like, I think I'm in the wrong freaking place. It's like this guy, I mean, he looked good, he looked tough, but I'm like, he just doesn't look like a wrestler. And then Chad walked in, and I'm like, I am definitely in the wrong place. But then, of course, Martin walked in, and I said, like, oh, all right, here we go. This is going to be good. And it just went from there. I built, I went in as an outsider, and after that one session, I left with a family, which was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember you coming to your first show, because I think I headlined that show that night. And as I come out of the ring, you approached me and said, "Why are you here? You need to be up in the big leagues." And I'm like, "This is my trainer's show, and I'm doing this for my trainer." And then you show up at the garage, and you see like you're talking about Chad. I mean, Chad doesn't look like he belongs there until you get him in a wrestling ring.
Until you get him, yeah. Once he starts moving, you're like, oh, yeah, this guy can move, yeah.
Yeah. And so the other thing that a lot of people don't know, and I'm gonna get Tony to back me up on this, is the first bump you took in Johnny's ring.
Oh shit, I still feel that. I remember you telling me stay away from that corner, and I said, okay, that corner right there. He goes like, yeah. So I stood away from that corner. I went to take a bump, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. Yeah, that was a good bump.
Oh yeah.
My
That was a
question
stout
is,
ring.
did you ever hit the park shelf?
Oh, dude, I hit so many car parts with my head. I don't even know where to begin.
When Johnny shut down, I searched for that carburetor, or the not the carburetor, but the air
Breather
filter.
cap.
Yeah, whatever it was,
You don't breather cap.
I hit hard that one day. I still got the scar. I searched for that because I wanted to bring that with me.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny's was a different place. One, there was no condition there. You were either hot or you were cold. There wasn't no in between.
I don't think I was ever cold.
And the ring was hard as a brick. I mean, there wasn't, the ring didn't bounce. You did. I mean, it was just hard as it could be. And but in between the ropes at Johnny's, we really learned how to do whatever we needed to do. There was no way after going through Johnny's that somebody could get in the ring with you and make you quit. There's just no way. They couldn't hurt you bad enough. It's like we had a few people try. You ain't gonna make us quit.
We all grew up in that era too. That you didn't stop, you finished the match.
Oh yeah.
Now
the one thing about Johnny,
they're telling you to stop.
The one thing about Johnny's was that it was wrestling. First and foremost, it's like, okay, I got you in a key. And John or Martin or even I mean,
don't forget Olga.
Johnny himself,
don't forget Olga, man.
And they'll say from the outside, man, that angle doesn't look right, and then so I think everybody helped each other out from different angles and different point of views, and I think that's how we were able to put up better storylines and sound movements and sound techniques. But I mean, everybody around the ring, everybody put a little bit of hey, let's do this, or that angle didn't, let's change that angle kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. We always had each other.
Yeah.
No doubt. Tony, while we're on here with me and you, do you remember that student you brought that time? I used to do a Russian arm drag that was pretty sweet, and I'd move it real fast. And Tony brings a student to Johnny's, and we're training, but it's not Chris Ace, it was another guy. And so I'm actually showing Tony the inner workings of this Russian arm drag that I would do. So I'm doing it in slow motion, and I tell this kid, I'm going to walk him through this, so just go with me. And I put myself in a compromised position, and the kid jumped on me, and he tore my collarbone loose from my sternum. Tony's smiling, he remembers this. And I tore that kid up before that, from his feet to his back. I tore him up. And it was bad because he's laying on the mat screaming, and I stand up, and Tony's like, dude, that looks like it hurts. And I'm like, man, this is killing me. And he looks at me and he goes, I think you messed up your collarbone. Whole time me and Tony are having this conversation, this kid's rolling around screaming. And then Tony says, hey, let me see if I can fix that. And he grabs my shoulders and headbutts me between my shoulder blades, and he pops my shoulder back out where it was supposed to be. And so I wanted to tell you, Tony, I was wrestling in Columbus, Mississippi. I'd wrestled Brickhouse Brown over there. And I'm coming out of the ring, and I'm walking, and this guy walks up to me, and he goes, do you remember me? And I said, how am I supposed to remember you? I've met millions of people. Yeah. And then he holds up his arm and he shows me a scar running down his arm, and he pulls up his sleeve and he shows me the scar on his shoulder. And he says, well, I sure remember you. And I immediately started hurting. My collarbone started hurting.
Way.
And I look at him and I go, you son of a bitch, I ought to whoop your ass again. And
No way. That's awesome.
But so many years later, he shows up. But I know it was just one of those. I mean, we talk about the real side of wrestling, and that's as real as it gets, man. This guy jumped in and tried to be bigger than he was, and I ended up having to tear him up, and he ended up tearing me up, but he never knew it. It's like he was too busy screaming to worry about how
it's all
bad
fake, right?
Yeah, it's all fake.
It's all fake.
I remember that match we had, Tony, in Tuscaloosa, the famous 3-man crowd match that we tore the house down with 3 men running, or actually 1 guy and 2 kids running around the ring screaming.
That was not Tuscaloosa. That was
not Tuscaloosa, in Tuskegee. I'm sorry.
In Tuskegee,
In
yeah.
Tuskegee.
But you two have done a lot together. You've went to Tuscaloosa. You've been to Florida together. You've done all these shows. You worked for Robert Gibson. Let's hear some of those stories, because I've watched some of your knockdown drag out matches up there. If I'm not mistaken, ain't that where the Punk from Hell came from?
It was, but we aren't going to go there yet. The first name I'm going to bring up for this is Dave Lewis.
And for those of y'all that don't
Blowed
know,
up himself.
Dave Lewis was the American Warrior.
Mr. Blowed Up himself.
Yeah, but do you remember my first match in Tuscaloosa? You took me.
Yeah.
Took me to Robert Gibson. We go in there and look. And so Robert looks at me and he goes, you know what's going to happen if you go out there and stink up my show, right? And I said, yeah, I'll get fired. And he goes, no, I'm going to fire him. And he points at Tony. I'm going to fire him for bringing me. And then he puts us in a 3-way dance. With Dave Lewis. And Dave Lewis can't work, right? He is all gimmick.
all filler, no killer.
Yeah. And at one point in this dance, Tony hits Dave and breaks his nose. And Dave spins around, and when he spins around, I'm already throwing a punch, and I unhinged his jaw. And he dropped like a rock. And then he's on his hands and knees and he crawls out of the ring and falls to the floor. And so
No,
me and Tony turned and
he was
start
saying,
doing
throw
the
me out, throw me out, throw me out.
yeah, yeah. Dave would get back in the ring on his knees. He'd never stand up. He'd be on his knees like he was running. And if somebody throw me out, somebody throw me out. And we had to have him for the finish. Robert was very specific
Yes.
on the finish that he wanted on this match. And he was actually giving me a true test as to whether I really knew how to work or not.
Yeah.
Excuse
But
me,
it was
folks.
mostly the match, if I remember, it was mostly me and you. Every time he come in, then it turned into you and me versus him and throw him out, and you and me worked most of the match. He was just blowed up.
We worked 99% of that match. The only thing Dave actually did in the whole match was the finish.
Yeah.
And we got the finish. We nailed the finish on that match. And we go back to the back, and I'll never forget when we get back there, Robert looks me right in the eye and he goes, "You were trained by an old guy." And I said, "Yes, I was." And he said, "I was
cool.
too."
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then he put so much heat on me that night that it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. He sent me out in the main event with Tommy Gunn. And I turned on Tommy in the main event. Man, it was ridiculous.
It was good. He I remember talking to him about you, and he said, like, well, I don't know. Let me see him. But when he saw you, he goes like, oh yeah, he's got the look. And then after that, it was like he wanted to, it's like you and me, whenever something happened and he would change everything around. He was like, nope, Spade and Road. You guys go.
Turns you face. You were a heel when I come in.
I was one of his biggest heel, and he turned me face so that we could have a good storyline.
Yeah. Created a chase between me and Tony. And I remember the night that I turned you face. I rode with you that night.
Yes.
And after the show's over, I sneak out of the building and I go get in the front seat of Tony's car, waiting on him to come out. And when he comes out, the audience follows him. Now, he was one of the biggest heels in the show up until that night. And the damn audience follows him out, and he's standing at the end of the hood, and I'm hiding in the car, listening to him go, we didn't know if you was going to get him, but you finally got him. And I mean, I sit in this car hiding for an hour while he's explaining to the audience, I got him. It's good. And so I remember the night we turned you, and it was awesome.
I didn't think he was going to be able to do it. I'm like, I told him, I'm like, dude, I have so much heat here. There's no way you're going to be able to turn me face. And that was the night that you came out with if women listen to, what was his name, that they would lose weight. What was that?
Richard Simmons, yeah.
Richard Simmons,
If Richard Simmons was to make a soap opera, some of you women out here could lose some weight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember that. That was pretty awesome. Oh, yeah. That was a great finish too. I remember he put me over and I raised my hand and you kicked and you did that spinning head drop DDT thing that you had going. Man, that was on video. It looked really good.
We need a copy of that, by the way.
Yeah, that was.
Tony, I have to say, we always had great matches. I mean, we always did. It was very involved, very fast, hard-hitting matches. And for people that are listening to this, I hope we get some fans that really listen to this. And there were two kind of wrestlers in the world. There were wrestlers that didn't want to get hit, and there were wrestlers that didn't mind getting hit. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, me and Tony, neither one ever minded getting hit. We never minded hitting somebody. It was that's what the fans are paying for, and that's what we give them. And I'll give Bogey props on this one too, because I know how bad I've hit him in the past, and I've toted a few broke bones from him too. I mean, you have to be willing to get in there and do this thing to entertain your audience, and so we would throw punches. We didn't pull nothing, It was just.
Well, it's one of those things that, the more you train, the easier it becomes. And people get hurt when they're not comfortable. So I think all of us, we were comfortable. It's like we knew our limits and we always took it to that limit. And I think that's what
Absolutely.
made a big difference.
The only time we ever felt uncomfortable was walking into a new place. So we reverted back to training that we had, and we just, it was either kill or be killed. So we went for the kill until we found out if that person could work.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you couldn't. They had to earn your trust first.